FRONTLINE and ProPublica came to Liberia, West Africa in the summer of 2014. We were investigating crimes committed during the country's brutal civil war, the 14-year bloodbath that began when the warlord Charles Taylor invaded in 1989. Hundreds of thousands died in the war, but one case in particular caught our attention: the killing of 5 American nuns, their deaths still an unsolved mystery. We wanted to know who would kill these women, why had nobody been held responsible, and how could this case have gone unresolved for so long? It was 1992. The war was heating up, and the 5 sisters were on the front lines, tending to the sick and distributing medical supplies. The sisters from the Adorers of the Blood of Christ had lived for years in this convent just outside the capital. Sister Shirley Colmer filmed this home video.
Beyond is the highway.
Sister Barbara Ann Mutra was the best known of the group. She'd come to Liberia 20 years before after a posting in Vietnam during the war. She worked not far from this church in rural Bomi County. One of her closest friends was Father Gary Jenkins.
Barbara could adapt to any situation. She was a strong will, strong mind, and sense of purpose. Whenever I go to complain to her, she would always say, "Look, Gary, there are no problems in this world, only challenges." And I've never forgotten that, especially during the war.
Sister Barbara was well known for her work with young children.
So every day you give her this much.
Even after the war began, she would often venture out, facing down rebel fighters and talking her way through checkpoints on the way to see her patients. But Sister Barbara began to find herself in harm's way.
There's a letter that Barbara wrote August the 21st, 1992. Dear Gary, something happened. They jumped in the car and told me to get out of the car. It was raining so hard, and I was trying to get back in the car, but the soldiers pushed me away. So she suffered, you see. She suffered. A lady by herself like that, 70-year-old, at midnight, still trying to get that car back.
2 months later, Sister Barbara and her 4 colleagues were dead. What exactly happened to the nuns remains in dispute. But 20 years on, some of the basic facts are known. The sisters were killed in 2 separate incidents. First, Sister Barbara and Sister Jo L. Colmer died in their car, victims of a rocket attack just a few miles up the road from the convent. The site's still marked by a shrine. There's another shrine here at the convent itself, where the other 3 were gunned down. Sister Kathleen McGuire at the gate, Sister Shirley Colmer and Sister Agnes Mueller outside the wall of the compound, their bodies then hacked to pieces.
It was probably close to 2 months before we were able to retrieve the first remains.
Gerald Rose has spent years urging American authorities to take action on the case.
Why? Why did this bother you so much?
Because it happened on my watch. And there is a responsibility for those of us who serve. I have a responsibility, and that responsibility is unfulfilled.
Rose helped repatriate the sisters' bodies. Embassy staff made a catalog of their personal effects. Shirley's rosary beads, Barbara's family photographs, Kathleen's white handkerchief with lace.
There are reports that we can't confirm that they were killed by the MPFL troops. That's Charles Taylor's group. Expatriates in the NPFL territory, we know, regularly face dangers from undisciplined NPFL troops.
Suspicion for the killings fell immediately on the NPFL rebels. But with the war raging, a thorough investigation didn't come until years later. Finally, in 2002, the Liberian Roman Catholic Church tried to get to the bottom of what happened.
I got to hear about it from the Archbishop, who, in fact, was distressed. And I think before his death, the Archbishop knew exactly who the people were, because they had done their homework well enough. But that was an atrocity committed by the NPFL and its operatives.
The church produced a report. It concluded, based on the testimony of 10 eyewitnesses, that 2 of the sisters at the convent were killed by an NPFL fighter. The third was killed by his commander, CO Mosquito.
He was one of Taylor's operatives. He's been linked to a number of atrocities. General Mosquito's name is notorious around here.
Call you, is General Mosquito, is it?
General Vambo, commonly as Mosquito.
At the time, Mosquito, born Christopher Vambo, was Taylor's top general in the area.
Okay. General or Colonel?
General.
General, okay. Okay, can you tell me what is your unit doing out here in Bonnersville?
Here he is talking to reporters just about a month after the sisters died.
Korean strong with our enemy. They are trying to penetrate through, but there is no way, and every day we crush on them.
We wanted to know, was this the man responsible for the murder of the nuns? And what had become of him? We found Christopher Vambo working as a security guard in the capital.
Are you General Mosquito?
Yes, I'm Christopher Vambo, commonly called General Mosquito.
I'm T. Christian Miller.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
He was nervous and reluctant to meet,
Can we sit down?
but he agreed to talk in a back room at a downtown restaurant.
They saw the vehicle coming towards them.
He said that his troops had mistaken Sister Barbara's car for the enemy and fired at it with a rocket-propelled grenade.
Carrying on a white vehicle with a Catholic sound on the pickup. But this day, they were running a military car. And what for? Nobody knows until today.
Right.
So, the RPG went straight into that pickup. Bam! Because the pickup came from the enemy zone. You understand what I'm saying?
Then we showed him the church report and asked him about the murders at the convent.
Sister Kathleen went toward the gates. As she did so, CO Mosquito, and that's you, shot her in the arms. She fell, and then he shot her fatally in the neck. He then announced he was going to kill all the white people and promptly killed Mr. Nassar, who's their
That's a lie.
driver.
That's a lie.
That's a lie.
This identical statement, I got a copy of this.
Yeah.
It's a blinking lie. I've answered the question before. I've read this statement before. It's a blinking lie.
General Mosquito said he arrived at the convent that day to find the women already dead.
So when you got there, there was a contingent of NPFL soldiers there.
in defense, yes.
And they call you and said, sir, these people were killed before we arrived.
Yeah. And I did ask. They said, no, Chief. We came here. We met these people dead in defense already.
His version conflicts with the accounts of at least 3 witnesses, all of whom put him at the scene.
Christopher Vambo was the one that executed the Catholic nun. But the Catholic nun was executed under his command. Under his command. But he wasn't the one that personally executed them. Yes, I agree to that. If there are charges for that, there's a penalty for that, go in heaven, no. But it wasn't I the one that executed the Catholic nun. We'll continue to say it, and we say it over again. Mr. Taylor.
General Mosquito has never faced any criminal charges related to the killing of the sisters. Without a trial, we are left with the accusations and his denials. But that's not uncommon. To date, Liberia has held no one to account for the crimes committed during the war. Rebel leader Charles Taylor is in prison, but for his role in the war in neighboring Sierra Leone, not in Liberia. Even the most notorious acts have gone unpunished. This is probably the most famous video in Liberia. It's hard to find anyone who hasn't seen it. It shows the torture of Liberia's president, Samuel Doe. The man with the Budweiser is the warlord Prince Johnson.
And I went to see him in this bungalow he lived in. And we were chatting away about this and that. And he said, do you want to see my film? And we all sat down, and the screen flickered into life. And this was the film of the killing of Doe, essentially.
Prince Johnson and his men tortured Doe for hours, even cutting off his ears.
Doe naked, but for his underpants, lying on the floor of the room next to the one we were sitting in. The cruelty of it, the horror of it. I'd never been so speechless, actually. You know, but I didn't feel that I could, I didn't say anything to Prince Johnson after that. Just nothing at all.
Doe finally bled to death. We went looking for Prince Johnson. We found him at this church. He is now a preacher. He's also a senator.
God's glorious promise has always kept my hope alive. When you work for God, He's there to intervene on your behalf in every circumstance. I have no fear. Where do we go from here? We go to heaven. Where do we go from here? We go to hell. It depends on the choice you make.
After the service, we were invited up to his office to talk. We asked him about the killing of Samuel Doe.
You don't understand. Confession already been made. I can never be a minister of God if I don't confess to God.
I understand.
I don't confess to you because I got no business confessing to you.
Why no account? That's no accountability.
You see, well, if I'm in court, then we account. If you prove case against me that you did this and did that, you got to prove because the burden of proof it lies with the accuser.
So you would go to a court if there was a court here in Liberia?
Well, who's going to take me to court? And I'm ready to go.
So if you were in Liberia, you get accused by a Liberian court, says...
Liberian court will never accuse me because I've done nothing wrong to be accused.
You've done nothing wrong. Are you denying the video of you killing Doe exists?
The thing is that, what do I deny? You have the video, but I'm seeing, why do you dwell on issue that is past? I'm seeing that it's...
Because I'm not hearing from you that you thought that was wrong.
I don't even need to say wrong and right. I am just telling you, in wars, many things happened.
And this was just something that happened?
It happened. And I'm telling you, you are hurting our peace.
After the war, Liberia went through a truth and reconciliation process with thousands of victims and witnesses giving testimony. The final report recommended more than 100 names for prosecution, with Prince Johnson and General Mosquito both on the list. But Liberian authorities haven't tried a single case. Late in our trip, we had an interview lined up with the president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. We asked her if Liberia had done enough to reckon with its history.
If something comes directly to us as a complaint, as a charge, and someone wants justice because they felt that their rights were infringed upon during any regime, Taylor or otherwise, then we have an obligation as a government to be able to respond to that and to deal with it. But in the absence of that, if we were to go fishing for everything that happened before this government, all of our time would be spent doing that and not moving the country forward.
And so the many crimes of Liberia's long war have gone unresolved, including the case of the 5 American nuns. But the United States did go back and try to find out who was responsible for the deaths. In 2002, the FBI sent a team of agents to Liberia and reportedly zeroed in on a suspect.
And we know who did it?
I don't know, but I know the Federal Bureau of Investigation has that name. They presented a case to the U.S. Attorney, the District of Columbia, and the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia declined to prosecute. Those of us who were on duty in the embassy in Monrovia when this happened still believe that's a miscarriage of justice.
The U.S. Attorney's Office declined interview requests. In a written statement, they said that despite intense efforts, the statute of limitations had expired for the potential offenses. So no charges were able to be filed. FRONTLINE and ProPublica also asked the FBI to answer questions about the case. They declined. The results of their investigation have never been made public.